from the Horrors, from the new album. It's called 3 Decades. One of the reasons we're playing that is because if you go to the Manic Street Preachers website, it's on the recommended. It's in a list of like 5 recommended pieces of music at the moment. That's right, isn't it?
Yep.
Horrors, so you're a fan.
I'm a fan, yeah. Especially fan of this record because I use so many reference points that I can just connect to.
What reference points from what, like late 80s?
Very early My Bloody Valentine, very early kind of Wedding Present, which I'm sure they will not appreciate whatsoever. There's a wee bit of loop in there as well.
Have you still got all those sort of mid-80s records? Do you still have them?
Steve? You've still got all those records too, mate.
Of course I have. Yeah. But no, I just wondered, is there sometimes a temptation? Well, there's nothing more I want to hear now than something than a bit of Stump or Bogshed.
Does the fish have chips? Does the fish have chips? Not one of their best songs. But I don't know, I just going through the last 3 years, so I just go through a period of just listening to music all the time. It's brilliant. I did have a really bad 2-year period round about Lifeblood where I stopped listening to music. Perhaps that explains the record, I'm not sure. Right. But I got lots of new records that I just listen to every day, and I am constantly listening to old stuff too.
And why was that then? Was there nothing you could find that excited you at the time? Or
I think it was just perhaps it was just a wee bit like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's kind of, but especially this year, it's just really switched back on and just buying lots of new records this year.
And what? And I'm going to ask you this: what is Mr. Wire listening to at the moment? Because me and him have never agreed on a record, have we? We've never agreed on a band. Well, at least me and you occasionally agree on a band. I've never agreed. He's never agreed with me.
He's absolutely nuts in love with the Pains of Being Pure at Heart record.
Is he?
Because if you listen, this is going to be really bad tonight because I'm just going to illustrate what the present means by referencing the past, but kind of that Pains of Being Pure at Heart sounds exactly like Sunny Sunday Smile by early My Bloody Valentine or Lovely Sweet Darling when they had a different singer, when they were kind of cutie buzzsaw indie band. I mean, that could be the summer record of that really is going to be the summer of love with that record.
I went to see that. I saw them at the Cockpit in Leeds in December last year, and the people it was really weird standing in this audience, and part of the audience were obviously the original C86ers come back because they'd found somebody. And part of it was a brand new audience as well. But you're right, it's New York's answer to that sort of cutie kind of movement.
I mean, it's so resplendent of it that it's not even pastiche. It's just perfect.
And The Wire likes that.
Yeah, absolutely loves that.
I bet he hates the Maccabees.
Sorry, I got a cough.
Of course he does. I couldn't believe the other day.
He doesn't hate them.
No. I can't imagine he's got the album on repeat. I couldn't have believed, though, I was reading somewhere the other day, he said he had a begrudging respect for Coldplay.
Yeah, he does, yeah. You look very intrigued and interested now.
But is it partly because they just dress up on stage?
He loved the military garb that they were dressing up in. I just think we've always just been slightly different. We've always just had really grudging respect for barefaced ambition, I suppose.
Right. But the only
weird thing going on.
You see, didn't they rip that off you though? That combat gear.
God, geez, they'd be over by now if they copied us in any regards whatsoever.
So Nick's okay though, Sean? Well,
yeah, no, Sean's just had another bin, so that's why he's not doing any promo for the last 3 weeks. That's his excuse. It's a good excuse.
I was going to say he timed that well.
He did. Didn't he? You did time it perfectly. Yeah.
We should talk about the album, the Journal for Plague Lovers, which is made up of Richey's lyrics. Whose idea was it?
It was mine, which is kind of strange, really, because The Wire usually has the mad ideas, but under his tutelage of the last 4 years or so, I finally came up with one of my own. And it's just a simple thing of just time elapsing, I suppose. Richey's disappearance was February 1st, 95. Yeah. So it just took this time. We took until 2007 to actually, for the actual idea, the thought bubble, just to process and just go, let's put music to these lyrics. But it's very obvious because he left us the lyrics in lyric form. I think the timeline in our heads was that he left us lyrics 5 weeks before he went missing, I think. And they were written as lyrics, chorus, bridge, verse, sometimes middle eights, and there are a couple of pieces in there which are written as prose but mostly as lyrics. So over the ensuing years, it's blindingly obvious that he left us these things at a very timely juncture, and he wanted something done with them. And that sense of responsibility started weighing me down in my head a tiny bit because we hadn't done anything with them. And then when I was just going through them, It ran about 2007 after we come back from Send Away the Tigers tour. It was the first time that I admit, first time I'd really connected with the lyrics. Before that, I hadn't connected with them. And it's the first time I was just having ideas when I was reading the lyrics, basically. So it just took time.
Well, how sort of... it must have been still, though, quite an emotional experience, wasn't it? Going back and starting to dissect the lyrics, if you like, in a way.
I didn't have any wobbly moments. I think Nick had a few wobbly moments. I don't know if
there wasn't ever a point where you're reading it and there must have surely been a temptation to try and sort of... You're trying to almost find... Were you trying to find any clues to his mindset?
I'm really wary of going down the B movie route when you actually just live in life. You know, to do this record, we weren't trying to understand Richey more. We weren't trying to find clues as to what happened. We weren't trying to find any closure. We weren't trying to find any catharsis. The overriding thing is that we had to carry through the responsibility of the lyrics that he left with us. So, and I love the idea of the challenge, because it would be a challenge, you know. I mean, I knew that to sing some of his lyrics, I would have to go out and buy an extra lung, you know. And I enjoyed the idea of that challenge.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the way he structures his songs or his lyrics, because some of them are very staccato, and some of them it's like having a mouthful of too many teeth, isn't it? It's like having a chorus full of too many words. There's too many words on that line.
It is. I mean, there's a song called Pretension Repulsion on the record where
that's the one.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, you know, I've said before, you know, his lyrics are full of intent and no punctuation. But in that song, it's just a list of words, and after every word, there's a comma. I was like, oh, you're using punctuation now, are you? It's a list of like 80 words, and there's like 80 commas as well.
Well, what do you think his strength as a songwriter was, a lyric writer? Because I mean,
just bravery.
Do you reckon? Because it's a different sort of style, isn't it? Because Richey was brilliant with the manifesto and the slogan.
Yeah.
But when he wrote lyrics, I mean, which is a very simplistic form of getting a point across. Yeah. Whereas with his lyrics, it's
I mean, it was hard at the start. Sometimes it was hard to separate the dogma from the poetry, you know. But kind of it's very clear on this record. I mean, you have a lyric like Pretension Repulsion, which is very, like I said, very staccato, and it's kind of cold and disengaged. And then you have a lyric like William's Last Words, which is almost like a eulogy. You know, it's very soft and very human. There's just reams of poetry in there. And I think that was his strength, especially by the end. His bravery as a writer is all he really believed in, I think, by the end. In terms of the outside world, outside of his family, the only thing he believed in by the end, I think, was writing lyrics.
But as a challenge,
I've discerned that's the one thing I have discovered through making the record. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, sure.
Was that kind of Nick would think about things and he'd write a lyric. His answer would be the lyric once he'd thought about something. Whereas Richey always did his thinking amidst the writing of the lyric. That's the main difference between them. Yeah. He would just use the lyric as a tool to actually just try and answer something, you know.
So he's almost he's having the conversation with himself down on paper, or he's having the thought process, stream of consciousness on the paper. How much of a challenge was it though for you? I mean, because in a way, bands sometimes soften and mature lyrically, and sometimes that crosses into their music. But you're using lyrics which are, you know, a very hungry, occasionally angsty sort of lyric. Must have informed the music, I guess, sort of out of sync with where you were.
I mean, I suppose you're asking is the question you're asking is, have you got it anymore?
No.
But you ask yourself that question, you know. When I was some of the lyrics, I thought, you know, I'm gonna have to reconnect to something that I haven't done for a long time. Yeah. You know, is it still there? Is it still in the locker? You know, am I just going to get a 10-minute appearance as a substitute? You know, have I got it? But kind of what I think made it easier is that kind of, the lyrics in the Holy Bible are full of rage, anger and disgust, and they're very, very internalized and very claustrophobic, as a record is claustrophobic. But I think, you know, the lyrics in this record deal with the fallout of the Holy Bible. There's a lot more doubt on the record. There's a lot more serenity, dare I say it. You know, there's somebody who's just come to a lot of conclusions, no matter how oblique or doubtful the conclusions are. There's a lot more peace and serenity and doubt on this record. So it's not always as angular or as angry as the Holy Bible was. So that made it a bit easier. But definitely there are lyrics in there which called for a lot of aggression.
One of the reasons I mentioned that here at this particular point is because I want to play this, and this has got some. I imagine Steve Albini loved putting this track down. This is from the new album, The Manic Street Preachers. James Dean Bradfield is our guest. See what you think of this. It's called Me and Stephen Hawking. I don't know about you, but I'm 13 again straight away. And throwing the shapes in my bedroom. Manic Street Preachers, Me and Stephen Hawking from the new album Journal for Plague Lovers, and it has got that brilliant line in it. We missed the sex revolution because we failed the physical. JC Bradfield, our guest in the studio. I bet Steve Albini loved putting that down. Did you do it all live, this record? How did you do it?
I didn't put the vocals down live because you got to give me a chance there. But kind of...
Bit out of puff.
Yeah. Sorry, boys. But no, we kind of the initial, the main guitar track, bass, and the drums all went down live on nearly every track, and that was I felt a sense of pressure doing that, definitely. There's something about Steve Albini. He kind of looks at you through the studio control window with his overalls on and his pencils coming out the top pocket.
Right.
And he's
he's gone into the lab for the day.
He never came to the control room without his without his overalls on, with a big E on it for Electric Audio Studios.
Right.
He's like a recording superhero, you know. And then you do 2 takes, and I was kind of nervous because you press the play button, or you press rewind after the first take, and it's the first time I heard that noise of going past kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but you do 2 takes, and you just go, okay, you got it. And I'd be like, no, we need to do it again. You can't do this to me. No, you got it, Sam, kind of thing. And so that was quite unnerving for me.
Yeah. I should say. But I mean, in terms of actually being able to play in a room together, that must have been exciting.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, I gotta say, there's some stuff on Send Away the Tigers where it's played live off the floor, as the Americans say. But kind of, to actually commit to doing an entire record where you all lay down the basic tracks together means that Sean's in control.
Right.
The drummer's in control, so I've got to listen to everything my older cousin tells me to do, which kind of like is kind of scary when Sean gets control.
When you see, drummers are having more and more control on bands now, aren't they? I think drummers, the part of a drummer is no longer just the sweaty man at the back, is it?
It's not. The cult of the drummer's on the rise, definitely. You know, it started happening with U2 a couple of months back, didn't it? It was the cult of Larry kind of thing. Yeah. But Sean's always kind of had the veto over me anyway. I
see. It's the quiet ones at the back.
It is.
Highlights of the record for you when you were writing it or recording it and thinking, yes, that's good. That's exactly what I wanted.
I think it was when we did the demo for Peeled Apples. When that came together, I knew it was going to be a really good record, kind of thing. And then when we actually went in and did it with Steve, I think it was about the 3rd track we did with Steve. And as soon as I heard the trademark Steve Albini drum sound, like I just knew it was going to be a good record.
We should point out as well, for people who think that it's a sort of unrelentingly bleak record in places, that wasn't Richey's style, was it? There are times where I imagine you laugh sometimes when you're going through, that's really quite funny.
I mean, let's not go into it and all that, but you met Richey, etc. You know that kind of like many. There was this kind of like stereotype of him of just being, he'd walk into the room like the Dark Lord. But he had a very soft Welsh lilt to his accent. He's always punctual. He didn't treat an argument most times as an argument. It was a chance to have a really interesting conversation. He was very civil. He was something very Richard Bryars-esque about him. It's like ever decreasing circles. He had this old softly natured professor thing about him sometimes. So kind of that, it's good that people might pick up more on that in some of these lyrics. You've mentioned the one lyric already, when we felt the physical in Stephen Hawking, and there are other lyrics in there which are just kind of, they are like jokes.
And there's a sensitivity as well in the joke. The joke sport severed. That jealousy sows its trajectory with a kiss. Is that the
rejection?
Rejection.
That's famous old James Bradfield diction. Again, it's like
I'm probably just cool. But there's one or two points where you think that's really capturing the sensitivity of what he did, because there's one track which is just you essentially in an acoustic guitar, isn't there, facing page top left.
Yeah.
That's which is amazing, because it's the light. You've shown the light and shade here, and it just sounds like you with a guitar and maybe a harp or something in the background.
Yeah, no, it was a Welsh harp player from Monmouth that we were recording. I kind of like that lyric because it's kind of really self-effacing. I think it's talking about one of his experiences in hospital, obviously, and it's talking about the community of cynicism that patients in a hospital start to have against the shrinks or the doctors, and that's a really interesting way of perspective of writing a lyric from, the way that kind of like, that sometimes, the patients just fight back and say, what are you prescribing me here? You're just stupid, kind of thing. It's just the angles that Richey came from, I'd forgotten, to be honest. I gotta say, I was very shocked when I actually started getting some of the lyrics. I hadn't remembered how original he was or how unique he was.
Do you think this could have been a follow-on to the Holy Bible? There are certain things which indicate, obviously Jenny Saville's artwork and everything link this to the Holy Bible, and it's Richey's lyrics which link it to the Holy Bible, but could it have slotted in there?
No, I think there are a couple of reasons why it couldn't. It's some kind of weird bittersweet serendipity that has happened like this, obviously, but Richey had this famous mission statement, which is written in the booklet, the original. Next album must be like Pantera meets Nine Inch Nails with a backdrop of Screamadelica by Primal Scream. I remember reading that thinking, oh, Jesus, don't do this to me. So I know that kind of, say if we would have started Record in Earnest with these lyrics, I would have been going to Richey, look, I don't know if I can do what you want.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how you would have reacted to that. He might have sacked me. So I don't know if it could have been a follow-up at that point, I gotta say.
So do you think he'd be surprised? Do you think he'd be surprised though to find you still going and doing this now?
I think he'd be pleased. I think he'd be pleased that the words were being used, because it's hard to kind of try and convey how much effort went into these 3 binders, especially the original one that Nick has got. They're paper flowers pressed in there, not even real flowers, just paper flowers and little bits of almost like paper mache bits of art in there, and painting and scrollings and his own drawings, and amidst 28 lyrics, and other people's work is in there as well. And somebody doesn't got that much effort for those things never to be seen, Yeah. So I think he'd just be pleased that the words were actually getting out there, and I think he'd have that mischievous sense of humour of trying to hear me sing some of those words, kind of thing,
Pick a track from the album then. Which one do you want?
Kept Pretension, Repulsion, please. Oh no, William's last words, let's go for. No.
Oh, you nearly tricked me there. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in, James, and from the new album. This is William's last words from the Manic Street Preachers.